Say when?
When?
Hi guys, my name's Brendan Johnson. Something that comes up quite a lot is boat wheel bearing changes, how to do it. And so I thought I'd just make a little video, show you how to do it. Easy, don't need any fancy tools. And it usually takes an hour each side, say. Okay, first job, before they jack the thing up, crack all the wheel nuts. Okay, so jack the thing up and then use your axle stands. Make sure you put an axle stand at either side, just for safety, because jacks will fail on. Okay, so I've got the wheel off, and you'll notice that there's quite a build up of grease here. It's done on purpose, especially when you've got aluminium wheels, mag wheels like this. They tend to react with the steel and the salt water, and they will find that if you don't grease these up, the wheel will stick to this, especially if it's been on a year, been in the water a few times. So save yourself a real pain in the ass when you're by the side of the road with a puncture. Grease all this lot up and the wheel won't stick to it. To get this centre cap off, they tend to stick on. Just get a little screwdriver like this down the edge of it and just tap gently. Don't go right through it, just tap and then start tapping outwards, and then from the same on the other side, just gently, and it'll slowly come off. There we go. So this is where the wheel bearing sits in here. It's held in by this nut. There's a thrust washer, which is just a washer behind it, and a split pin. So the first thing you've got to do is you've got to get the split pin straightened out. Get a pair of pliers, pull it down, get it straightened up. So put them together like this. You're not going to reuse this. It's really bad practice to reuse the split pin. Straighten it up as good as you can, and then I find just tapping it out with a hammer. Of course, that ain't going to come out, is it? All right, so grab hold of the end with the pliers and use them like a lever and pull it out. There we go, it's coming. Okay, that's broken off, doesn't matter. Do the same on the other side. We'll pull it out. Right, so we've taken the split pin out. They're always a pain in the ass. Remember, make sure before you start that in your set that you've got a new split pin, thrust washer, and all the bits you need. Right, this one, it won't be tight. You just undo it like this. Like so, take it out. That exposes the thrust washer that's behind. Right. The idea of the thrust washer is just so that you can load up, so you can tighten the nut up onto the bearing without actually damaging the bearing. To get this out, I find it's just a bit of a tap, and then we'll just pull it out. So what we've got here is, this is the outer bearing. This is, hang on, I'll put that down. This is the thrust washer. This is the outer bearing. Okay. It's called a tapered bearing, just so you know, because it's tapered. So that means that the harder you do it up, the tighter you do it up, the more pressure you'll put on the bearing, because of the fact that it's wedge shaped. Okay, what we've got left on here, this is called the stub axle, this bit here, right? What we've got left on is the seal from the inside. They tend to stick on here. So that's the old seal, that's all rubbish. You can see the water ingress, the water's got in it because it's turned the grease into that sort of mayonnaise. All right, and then we've got this little metal disc. Don't know what you really call this, but this comes off. It's just like a little cover for the oil seal, really, but that just sits on there. There we go. It's caught in all the rust and shit. Okay, there we go. Okay, so we've removed the old seal, left with this combination of rust and grease on here. So get a rag, give this a good wipe off, like this. Get all the rust and crud off of it. If you need to, give it a wire brush on the ends, but that's not too bad. That's not too bad at all. Now, when you're doing this job, you want to sort of split it into two halves. The first half is the dirty side. You've got all the old bearings, the old grease, crud, and mud and crap that's in there. So do all the dirty work first, clean the stub axle up, clean the hub up, get the bearings out, and then wash your hand and clean it all, and then start afresh. So then go wash your hands and start with the new bearings with clean hands, clean rags. Don't use your old rag. Start using clean rags once you've got it all put back together. Okay, so this is the hub. It's got the outer bearing there, and it's got another bearing there. That other bearing has an oil seal that sits over the top of it like this.
That's it,
and then it has the metal disc that just supports that as it goes onto the shaft. Okay, so the inner bearing is here. It's in behind this cap. I need to take this cap out. I'll show you that in a second. But the inner bearing sits in there and the outer bearing there. Okay, so we're going to work on the inside bearing first, taking that out. The first job is to remove this cover. All right, it looks like it's part of the hub, but trust me, it's not, and it can be a bugger to get off. I would have liked to use a vise, but the light over there is rubbish, so I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to struggle without it. Little screwdriver, try and tuck it in behind there, like that, and then just tap. You can destroy this because you're not going to use it again, so it doesn't matter. Work around, do the same on the other side, and keep working around. I'm not going to bore you with that. I'll show you. There we go, nearly there. Nearly there, it's coming. Just takes a bit of time. Just take your time with this job. Don't get too angry with it. There we go. So there's the old inner bearing cover. It's been smashed up a bit, getting it out doesn't matter because we throw that away. Here's the inner bearing. It's bigger than the outer one. As you can see, it's full of brown emulsified grease where the seawater has got in and destroyed it. Okay, so I've given the hub a bit of a clean up so that we can see the bits we've got to take out. This is the inner bearing, outer case. This is the outer bearing, outer case as well. So we have to knock them out from the opposite side. It can be a pain in the ass job. You need something like that with a flat end on it. Because what you do, you pass it through, and if you look in there, you can see there's a ridge. I'm just tapping that on. Right, that ridge in there is the back of the other bearing case. So to get them out, bit of a pain this one, but you just go around, tap from the other side, tapping down, like there. So place the drift on one side, give it a bit of a tap, and then the other side, then across. So trying to do it evenly from 4 different positions so that you're driving it down squarely so it comes out. So we've got this far, it's almost out, it's now flush with the edge of the hub, as you can see there. Now, if you're using a bench like this, then you're gonna have to grab yourself a couple of bits of timber because obviously not everyone's got a vise. Well, not them ones anyway. And we'll just raise it off of the bench just a little bit, just enough to allow it to drop out. So we've almost got it out now. I'll just put the wood up on the side to give us a bit more space, and then we'll just tap the last bit. There we go, simple as that. Yeah. So that's the big one out. Now we just turn the hub round, we'll get this one out. Right, we've got both the bearings out. There's a touch of damage on the inside edge. We just created a little nick there, but we'll rub that down with a bit of emery cloth just to get rid of that. Just a little nick there, see?
Oh, yeah.
Give it a good clean up using a clean rag. Just make sure you got all the crap out of there. Okay, so here's the new bearing set. I'll just show you what comes in here. So you got a couple of bits. Got that little ring that goes on the outside on the stub axle. This is the bigger bearing, the inner bearing. Both sides to it. Like that. Lovely new one. Okay. Got the new cover from there, new oil seal. And then we got the outer bearing, which is the smaller one. Now, I've just cleaned my hands up because we're dealing with the new stuff now. So we don't want dirty, gritty, greasy hands for it. Okay. Right, so now what we've got to do, it's all in reverse. We've got to knock this one back in there. Now, a little tip for doing this is, first of all, use a piece of wood on top and just tap it down so it goes down centrally. You don't want to be damaging this by smashing it with a hammer, as tempting as it may be. What you can do is use the old bearing race like this, right, and grind down this side. If you've got a grinder, just grind this down and then use this on top of it like this, so it spreads the load out, and then you can just tap it down like this. So we've tapped it down. It's just below the edge of the hub here. Now's the time to give the old race a grind down so that it fits inside here, so that as you tap it in, you don't get the bloody thing stuck. Yeah. Probably. I don't know if you feel this. I love using the old grinder, but you do have to be careful who you say that to nowadays. Okay, so we've got both the small and the large outer bearing race in there. Now it's time to give it another final clean up, and then we'll start packing it with grease, get the bearings in and put it back together. Take your time when you're loading the bearings up with grease. Make sure you get plenty in there. Okay. Nothing beats a bit of lube. Okay, so that's fully loaded with grease now. We'll put a bit on the outer race here. Just move a bit of that in. And then we'll drop the bearing into it. Put it down. Like so. Okay, so we've loaded this up with grease. Plenty of grease in there. Now we've got to get this thing in. They're quite tricky to get in. A little tip that I find is put it on there flat. Get a piece of timber that you brushed off so there's no crap on it. Lay it on there flat like this. And then give it a good. And there we go. Beauty. So that's together, and now we just take the small outer bearing, again, filling that up with grease, and we'll put it in the hole. So being a marine trailer and the boat ramp that we use is quite shallow, it means that we end up reversing in usually over the top of these hubs. So what I'm going to do is fully pack them with grease, so hopefully it'll keep the water out. So we're going to start putting it back together. Just give this one more clean, a good clean up, like that. A little bit, just a light coating of grease, just to let it slide on there. Well, doesn't need a lot. There we go. Push the little metal ring on first. That goes up on that top shoulder. It goes right the way back, like so. Okay, so this is the inner bearing. full of grease in there. A lot of it's going to squeeze out when we do this, but as I say, plenty of grease keeps the water out. We'll put that oil seal just in there, just sits in there like that, and as it gets squeezed up by the action of doing up the nut, it'll actually sit flat and stay in there nicely. So there we go. Just push that up. See, just mind that bearing there. And you can see it's nicely full of grease. That's lovely. Okay, so we've pushed this on. We'll put the thrust washer in, like so, and then the castellated nut. Castellated nut because it looks like a castle, and these bits so that you can get the split pin. There's a hole through here. We can push that split pin through and we can lock it in position. That's the whole purpose of that. Okay, so we do the nut up, and to sort of set the bearing, we'll do it up reasonably tight at first. That just gets everything in the right place. Make sure that the hub is pushed right up against the oil seal, and it's all the way home. So that's there. It doesn't have to be, you're not going to sort of monster it down. You're just going to give it a bit of a tighten like that. Okay, so once you've tightened it down, you then back it off. Just leave it loose like this. And we're going to put the wheel on because we want to adjust up the play in that wheel bearing. And the only way you can really do it is by putting the wheel on, and then you'll be able to feel it. So we'll leave that reasonably loose. We'll put the wheel on, and then we'll set the bearing. Okay, so while we're putting this back together, we noticed that a couple of the threads on these are damaged. So I'm going to just demonstrate how to change these studs. It looks like it's going to be an end of the world job, but it's pretty easy. That's the damaged one. Got to pop off to the shop and get a new one, but they're just held in with these little splines. They're not welded in. They look like they are, but you just knock them out and knock new ones in from behind. Okay, so we've been to the old shop and got ourselves a full set. It cost about 10 bucks. So while we're here, we're just going to replace the whole lot. I've knocked the other studs out, and we'll get these ones in. I've put a little bit of grease on here. You don't really need to, but when you push them in from behind, just turn them and just get them lined up into the splines. There you go, like that. And then hold them, and then you give them a bit of a tap on the back. And then what we'll do is we'll put a couple of nuts on this side, tighten them up, and they'll just pull through. So I've already done these ones. These have been replaced. I'll just show you a little way we're doing it. So we've tapped it in from behind, so they're just in reasonably tight. Then we use one of the old nuts here, and we'll just use that to pull them through. So we'll use the old gun. And you can see from behind it, you'll see it being drawn in. So that's a new set of studs we've put in. We've put the wheel on, tighten all the nuts up properly, just so that when we check the wheel bearing, we're not getting a false reading. We're not getting some play because these are loose. So they're tight. We'll spin the wheel, make sure there's no rumbling noises. It doesn't feel rough, it feels lovely. And then we'll just, from underneath and above, just give it a shake and see if there's any movement. There's no movement there, that's lovely. So we'll lock it up at that point by putting a split pin through it. We've got to take the wheel off though to get to the split pin. Okay, so we want to lock it up in this position. We're happy with the setting of the wheel bearing. So we put the split pin in. Always use a new split pin. I'll put it through the hole here, and it's not quite lining up. So what that means is we need to adjust it slightly just to get the little castellated bit in the right place. So we'll do it up just a touch, and then it will slide in. Okay, so see if that fits. There we go, that's through now. Remember, when you put it in, there's a short edge and a long one, right? Put the long one out towards you, because that's going to be bent back and come back over the middle of this. So put it in like this, all the way home. Make sure it's all the way home. Grab a pair of pliers or just bend it back like this. Bend it back just a little bit until you can cut it to length if necessary, because these are a touch long. So we'll just chop a little bit off. Okay, so we've cut this outer one down a bit, and now we'll just bend it back. Bend it back like that, so it's over the center of the nut, and then just tap it home. There we go. Now the inner one cuts down a lot shorter because it's just going to fold down flat against the side of the nut. So we'll just chop that off quite short. So then we'll bend that tab back. Okay, so that's the split pin put in properly. It's nice and snug in there, and that's going to hold it all together and hopefully hold your wheel on. Now what we'll do is, I actually forgot to clean up this center cap, so we'll give that a bit of a clean up, and then we'll put that on, and let's not forget to grease this backing plate here so that we can get the old wheel off in a year's time.